Good morning, Green Spring. Today is Wednesday, August 21st. I'm Elke Martin, your host, and I'm here today with Natalie Johnson, who is a physical therapist in our outpatient rehab. Good morning, Natalie.
Good morning.
And you are going to tell us about the 5 most common complaints that people have that bring them into your office, correct?
Yes, ma'am. I was going to talk about, in no particular order, kind of the 5 most common reasons people come to see us in outpatient. So the first one I wanted to talk about was pain. That's one of the top reasons we have people come. Most common is low back pain and shoulder pain. So low back pain could be that they have arthritis or a diagnosis of stenosis or degenerative joint disease. But for whatever reason, their back is hurting, surgery is not an option, and they come to see us. For shoulders, a lot of times...
Shouldn't they come to you before anyway, before they consider surgery?
It depends on what their doctor says. So to come see us in therapy, you have to have a doctor's order. So you've come to see a doctor first. Sometimes they run testing to see an X-ray, MRI, and then it's determined that they can't have surgery for whatever reason, or surgery is not an option, or like you said, let's try the conservative route first, which would be therapy, medications. Also injections. People ask us, can they have therapy injections at the same time? And they can. If you're going through injections, we don't interfere with that, the protocol or exercises that we do.
But you don't do the injections?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. We do have modalities, what we call modalities for pain. So those are external agents that we use for pain control. Some common ones are heat, ice, electrical stimulation, shortwave diathermy, ultrasound. So those are some of the tools that we use for pain. Each one of those are particular to the resident, so some of them have precautions if you have certain things we can't use, but we do that assessment in the evaluation. And then we use exercises. With low back pain, we have a protocol that we use for posture and decompression, we call exercises. And then another common we see is shoulders, so a lot of rotator cuff injuries, tears. There's nothing we can do to fix your rotator cuff, but what we try to do is strengthen your shoulder girdle, your muscles around, to protect the joint, and then we use the modalities as well to decrease the pain.
Did you just say shrink wrap? What did you say?
Decrease the pain?
No, before.
Protect the shoulder girdle?
Shoulder girdle, okay.
Oh, is that what I said?
I don't
that's just your shoulder, in general, the mechanics of your shoulder. Yes, ma'am. So those are back pain and shoulder pain are kind of the most common pain, but pain in general is a reason that people come to see us a lot.
Yeah, who wants pain?
Exactly. Another reason, common reason that people come to see us is for balance. So sometimes there's been a fall or a series of falls. Sometimes the recommendation comes from social work. Sometimes the recommendation comes from the doctor. If you go to see the doctor, you've had falls. For whatever reason is causing the falls, a lot of times that's why someone comes to see us. And we will do an assessment for balance and strength and then address whatever needs to be addressed to look at the balance and improve the balance and strength. So that is another reason that people come to see us.
And then where do they get their prescription for that? Or is that something that goes without a doctor visit?
Same thing. You always have to have a prescription. Always have to have a prescription to come see us. So sometimes they go to their doctor, their neurologist, they talk about the falls, and the doctor recommends therapy. Sometimes it will come from a social worker or even a caregiver, and then sometimes people do contact us before the doctor. If you're internal and you see our doctors, sometimes we can work with the medical center to get that referral.
I see, yeah.
It just depends on what the doctor is comfortable with, if they've seen you recently, sometimes they're comfortable just sending that referral over.
Okay.
They haven't seen you in a while, they may say, come see me first, and then we'll send the referral over to therapy.
Do you also work with the fitness center? When you said balance, it reminded me of the balance class that they offer twice a year.
Yes, which is excellent,
yes,
I hear.
I've done it once, and I'm in line to do it again.
To do it again, yeah, it's coming up.
Oh, yes, it's strenuous, but that's probably the point, to
yes,
strengthen
yes.
your
And we
activities.
do, we help them with their assessments, for sure,
Yeah.
the pre and post assessments that
Yeah.
you do. We usually have a therapist or two there helping with those. Yes, we work very closely with the fitness center. I've actually myself had a couple meetings with their team in the last several months talking about what we offer, making sure they understand so that if they see something with one of their clients or one of the residents in the fitness center that it looks like this person's having some trouble with this, again, starting that process of getting a referral. Many of our residents go to the fitness center after they see us. So we have what we call an internal referral that we send over to the fitness center that explains what we worked on in therapy and what our recommendations are. We also always complete, in your last, say, 3 to 4 visits with us, we will go over to the fitness center with you. Mm-hmm. And if you're already a member of the fitness center, you have a routine, we go through that routine and then make recommendations based off of why you were seeing us. If it was back pain, avoid this exercise. Make sure your abdominals are tight with this exercise to protect your spine, things like that.
Make sure the seated is 7.
Right. Some people haven't had that sort of look at again in a while since their initial meet with the fitness center. So we always do that with people that have never been to the fitness center but are interested. We go not to take the place of what the fitness center does for you when they take you through the machines, but just to show you, I would recommend this machine, this machine, this machine I would avoid. Yeah. And then when we send that information over the fitness center, you go back to the fitness center, they pull that sheet and then work with you from there. So we have a very close relationship with the fitness center.
Good, that's great.
Yes.
Yeah.
The next thing I wanted to talk about that people often come in is after an illness or an injury. So kind of the obvious, you fall, you break your arm, you fall, break your hip. After you've been through sort of the acute rehab, if it required surgery or not, in the healing, then often you're left with some lack of range of motion and some lack of strength. So you come to us to help with those. Also with an illness, sometimes people go to the hospital, with pneumonia or some other injury or illness. They don't necessarily need to go to Garden Ridge. They don't necessarily need home health, but just being kind of down and out for a couple weeks, they can tell they're weak and they need to kind of come to us to get going.
It is remarkable, isn't it, how quickly you lose strength when you are not out and moving.
Exactly, and we all do. It just, as you get older, that process happens a little bit quicker. But we all
Everything
do.
else happens slower, but
that process seems to happen a little bit quick. But it's the same for all of us. I run. If I stop running, it's like I've never run before. You know, so it happens with all of us. Another reason people come to see us is memory. If they're noticing.
Oh, really?
That our speech therapist works with memory and cognition. So sometimes that comes more from a caregiver because maybe the person themselves doesn't realize that they're having difficulty with a task, maybe managing money, managing a checkbook, keeping up with bills, directions, those kind of things. So sometimes that comes from a caregiver or social work, and the person will come to see a speech therapist for that.
Huh.
Yeah.
What does speech therapy have to, I'm not sure I understand the direct link.
So speech therapy works on cognition and memory and also swallowing. So the swallowing, if you have difficulty, if a food, diet change, those kinds of things. And then they also work on memory and cognition. They have different recommendations. They have different things that they can look at to see where you're struggling, and then they can help to adapt your environment to help you where you are. So of course they can't fix, like we always say in therapy, I can't fix your arthritis, but we try to provide you with tools to make it better and live the best life you can with what you have. So they have different ways to address, and I'm not a speech therapist, so I can't speak to it perfectly like they could, but they give you tools to adapt your environment to help with whatever difficulty you're having.
Yeah, actually that reminds me, there are tricks, so to speak.
Yes, exactly.
That you can go around.
A lot of times they fall back on things you've always done. Maybe, many years ago you used a certain kind of paper calendar and it's kind of fallen off. You're retired, you don't use that calendar. It's kind of bringing those things back because you might need those reminders now for things you didn't maybe 5 years ago, like you did several years ago when life was a lot busier. So they're really good at looking at things that worked in the past for you and sort of going back to that. And then they're great for caregiver and family education information on how, as a caregiver, you can support
Yes.
the person at this new sort of place that they are.
And maybe help train people in a new routine.
Exactly. Things that you can help cueing, that you can provide to help, because everyone wants to maintain their independence as long as possible. You know, the answer is not for necessarily someone to be hired and come in and do everything for you. That's usually not what people want anyway. They want to maintain their independence. You just may need to adjust the environment, and sometimes you need an expert to help with that, and that is what they're expert in. And
nobody wants to hear, did you forget? Or don't you remember we talked about that?
Right. Exactly. And that's the kind of language that a speech therapist can help you with on how to cue and not upset the person or the situation. And sometimes, you know, the answer is the caregiver has to do more or has to take over a certain task. But there's ways that, you know, the resident can still be involved.
Yes. And it's certainly good to have outside eyes look at that.
Exactly. Exactly. And then the last one, number 5, in no particular order, of course, is if someone's having more difficulty completing everyday tasks, what we call activities of daily living. So the things that you need to do to be able to do the things you want to do: bathing, getting dressed, getting ready in the morning, tasks in your home. So our occupational therapists are specialists at that. So if, say, you're having difficulty getting dressed, you're just noticing it's taking you much longer than it used to, the occupational therapist can assess you. Is it a strength issue? Is it a hand strength issue or range of motion issue? Is it a balance issue? You're not able to stand and put on your pants anymore, so now you're sitting, it's taking longer. And they have tools that they can recommend to make it easier.
I remember that.
And they also just have a lot of ideas. If we need to see you in your home environment, we will for a session to see how you're doing there, and then we address the rest of the issues in the clinic and can practice those things: exercise, strengthening, balance, whatever you need to do to be able to do those tasks you want to be able to do or need to be able to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really interesting. Thank you so much. And believe it or not, our time is just about up.
Oh.
So you rattled through the 5 major complaints that people have at this stage in their life. And this has been very informative. Thank you so much, Natalie.
Absolutely.
So nobody needs to feel bad about themselves when something happens, when something isn't like it used to be. We just work with the outpatient specialists to adjust to the situation and make the best of it, right?
Absolutely. That is our goal. It's all about you.